Well, hey there team, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to an overview of Airborne Kingdom. So it's a little bit out of season. The sequel is just around the corner, much like Citizen Sleeper, which we jumped back and had a look at because the sequel's on the doorstep. We're doing the same thing here. So Airborne Empire is about to drop into early access, in a few days maybe. So this seems as good a time as any to go back and have a look at its predecessor. So when I do overviews, I just have a look at the first 2 hours of a game. It's a Steam refund window. Steam reckons that you can make up your mind about whether you want to keep a game or not in that time. And generally speaking, I agree. And as a rule, would say 20 hours in, you're probably not going to change your mind about how you felt 2 hours in. So it's a short, punchy video, broad strokes info. Keep it around 10 minutes, and then you can make up your mind on your own. So, straight up, this is a banger. I was sort of consumed in a fugue state. I blew through my 2 hours in a snap of the fingers. So I would say it's really quite interesting if you're looking at colony builders in general, city planners, whatever you want to call it. Like, I wouldn't say it's light, but I do feel like that category tends to be very, let's say, heavy, right? So lighter than city skyline, something like that. But it's got some unique mechanics on top of what you would expect as staples. The setting's really cool, if vague, but I kind of like it, actually. It is the black box after the fall lost technology trope that you see more and more in video games, which I've kind of been critical of in the past, but it's really quite growing on me. Which is to say, in this setting, you're in a sort of, let's call it a tribal post-apocalyptica, and there is this rumor throughout the lands of these sort of disparate fallen kingdoms that there was this once super duper kingdom, the Airborne Kingdom, that would fly around and kind of help people out, and, you know, it sort of escalated quite literally, if not metaphorically, peoples serving the land. And you in your sort of tribe, I guess you could say, have found these MacGuffin blueprints that have given you a jump start on the technology. So you start with a very rudimentary center HQ building, which is flying in the sky. And you can drive it around, but basically, regardless of whether you're driving or not, you have like a coal tax. You know, you have to spend coal to keep the buildings up. And you have your peoples, limited at the beginning, who need housing for, happiness, but food and water. So you've got a couple of resources to manage. One of the first buildings that you're going to build is a hangar. And it has this very cool, you could probably call it clockwork come wood punk type aesthetic. So you've got these cool little biplanes on jump ramps that fly out, but ultimately what it serves is as a vehicle, literally I guess, to get your dudes to go and harvest resources from the world below. So you're sort of looking down at this open map. And by the way, I think the map is a brilliant, clever design. It's kind of a cartographic manifest in that there are grid lines and the text telling you, like, if there's a forest with 20 wood left in it, it will say 20, but they're all aligned north to south facing. So you'll find, even though you have 3D camera control, you will drift to default north facing because the world map, when you open it up, lines up with the actual world map as you look down on it. It's very clever. As a dude that's really fiends for UI and UX design, this is something I haven't seen before, and it's incredibly clever, organic, and kind of proves that something doesn't have to be hyper realistic for it to work. Like, in a way, I'm more immersed because of this design. But I suppose from a distance or even from an elevator pitch, it is the definition of not immersive world map geographic design, basically having you look at a map in a way. So functionally, you can just right-click on the world and your little car base will drive around. Like I said, the cost of moving doesn't seem to really matter because, it ties into this idea of elevation being part of the cost. But as you build out your platform, you get some unique building constraints, which are very engaging. One of them is like a sort of drag mechanic. You're not strictly trying to be aerodynamic. It's more weight-based, right? You have X blocks that you're allowed by the current lift allocation. So think of that as a much more static metric. I think it's 40 at the beginning. You want to build a house that's going to use up 1 or 2. You want to build an academy, maybe that uses up 3. So it's a build limit based on the lift output of your current city. And then you'll get more lift buildings, which in turn will use up more fuel. So there is that creeping societal cost that you'd expect from a city builder. But the interesting wrinkle on that is that you have a top speed, which is limited by this arbitrary drag concept. Think of it more as weight in a way, and you can add certain buildings as you unlock the technologies cruising around. Your general objective is to, recreate the airborne kingdom of old, unite the tribes. You're going to go meet these civilizations, and you can kind of have a rudimentary shop exchange. As you explore the world, you'll find, resources as a currency that you can trade for technology blueprints. So you'll unlock these blueprints, and for example, you'll unlock the ability to put fans that have to be worked by your dudes. They'll have a cost, but they'll increase the max speed cap. Now, your base will actually have a flat max speed, and it's got a little speedometer, gives you an idea. And that's actually really interesting. It's not that you necessarily want to get places faster, but you're trying to impose that against the constant ticking down of your fuel, your food, your water. So if you're moving slow through the world, it's costing you more resources to survive. So it's an interesting way to see speed, less about the traditional, need for speed, trying to go from point A to point B faster, but it's more about trying to be an offset to the rate at which you use up your resources. Long and short, ship go slow, go through food relatively faster. Now, further to the lift mechanic, you have tilt. So let's say you extend a pathway out. The game's not worried about things breaking off. You can make some pretty ramshackle, crazy stuff. So structural integrity doesn't seem to be a thing, but let's say you extend some heavy buildings right out on the front. Well, the game will tell you that you have a 1 degree front tilt. Not really that big a deal, but once it gets up to around about 4 degrees, you can look at it, it becomes quite noticeable, but this starts really upsetting your people, which I think is a reasonable position to hold. Hey, I live on this elevating platform, and the dickhead upstairs keeps building stuff further and further, and, I'm trying to take the kids to school, and I'm going to fall off this road and die. I would probably have my satisfaction meter drop as well. And so, what is the answer? Well, start building things at the back, balance it out. So you can eyeball it, but, it does tell you in degrees where you're at. And I think it's really clever. And beyond that, you can move buildings, but there is a cost in lumber, and it's, kind of not cheap, especially in the early going, and you will exhaust these forests. They're not infinite. You'll send your little planes out. Let's say they pick up all the wood and bring it back, and then you move stuff around to, min-max and be a bit anal, but there is a ceiling on that, and you can't stay static. So you might do that. You'll blow through all your construction materials. You'll have to move somewhere else. So it has a really clever loop that you just would not see in this sort of genre, and it's very engaging. Now, once you hit your, say, 40 block limit, right, you don't have enough lift, your city's too heavy, you can start building lift buildings, and wouldn't you know it, they create a counter tilt problem. And it is sort of, distance related. So let's say you build one of these big lift fans that will increase the amount of building mats you're allowed to build out, but you put it right out on a huge spoke out on the right. That's going to create a huge tilt problem. And, they're noisy and unpleasant. No one wants to live near them, so you kind of don't want to build them near civilization. So at the moment, I'm doing a rework where I'm trying to bring my lift fans further into the center. So I'll give the lift bonus, but I won't get such a tilt problem. But by doing that, I kind of have to rezone my residential centers. So yeah, for a chunk of time there, just in the sake of expanding my perfectly balanced, as all things should be, city, I added a bloody fan that put it on a mono wheelie for about half an hour with people leaving my city. The game tells me that they left because they're unhappy, but who knows? Maybe they did fall off. But yeah, look, that's the mechanics. That's the broad idea. This open world I'm exploring, I'm sort of allied with the starting civilization, and they send me wood on the regular. I worked with them to build a skyport. Now I'm exploring this land where there's something wrong with their water table, and I'm trying to help them restart an ancient pump, which has ramifications in that, my water, it's not that I'm going through it faster, it's that I'm not finding oases to top it up. So I'm going back to the old continent to refill water. Anyway, I'm obviously quite smitten. I think this is a really clever game. I wouldn't say it's simple, but I would say that it does the right thing in that it's taken an appropriate bite of the pie when it comes to mechanics. So many games, in the pursuit of adding extra value, etc., they just pile on crap and crap and crap, and then you end up with 100 different, mini games and mechanics that are unpleasant and not well realized. So this game is actually really excellent, and I would highly recommend checking it out ahead of the next one's release. And I guess we'll have a look at that when that comes up in the next however many days. Anyway, team, that's enough from me. Might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.